While I was returning from office, I passed one of many bars in the street, and unintentionally, I stepped into a regular pub where I have been drinking for the past 3 years. The bartender recognized me and started preparing my drink, while I took a look around the bar and started staring at the television. There was a football game playing on the television between the teams that I never knew before, because I am more of a rugby kind of guy. The reason I couldn't focus on the game was the letter that I got yesterday when I reached home in the evening. It was written by my wife, Susan, and the fact that it was typed and she didn't have the audacity to actually write the letter by hand was enough for me to fixate on this for hours or even days. In that letter, she said that she has finally made up her mind and she doesn't want to fight anymore. She said she is moving to her aunt's home in Philadelphia to clear off her mind, and it's better if I don't contact her. She didn't write it in the letter, but I got the feeling that suddenly our marriage was over. Still thinking about how cruel it was to end your marriage with a typed letter. It was probably one of the few times when I couldn't enjoy the drink and alcohol had no impact on my mind. It's hard to imagine what someone is going through when they just keep rolling their glasses in between their hands while sitting alone, when there are dozens of people around them chatting, dancing, and having good time. Behind me, a group of young girls were sitting in the corner. They were laughing very loudly and enjoying their drinks before heading to a club nearby and dance off on their favorite songs. I always thought that it's better to get drunk in a cheaper bar before hitting the club where drinks are way too expensive. I don't know why, but I suddenly had an urge to get up and shove the glasses into their throats so they would stop laughing and giggling. Controlling my feelings and trying my best to keep a calm face, I turned towards the television wall, reaching to the pack of cigarettes in my coat side pocket. I used to smoke a lot before I met Susan, about 4 years ago. And somewhere we had that magical connection that convinced me to quit smoking. Now that I remember, I never thought quitting smoking was that easy. Maybe that's a part of young love. After getting her letter yesterday evening, the first thing I did was buying the pack of Marlboro. After receiving the typed letter from her, the least I could do was to smoke without caring about anything. Actually, what I wanted to do was to scream her name with full capacity of my lungs and shout, "Motherfucking asshole bitch!" Before I could even open my mouth, I realized that there's no one there to hear my out, and it's probably better to relax instead of screaming to empty walls. About the same time when I was thinking about my wife, someone without being noticed sat just next to me. I put the cigarette in between my lips and reached my pocket for the light. The same person from her right side just put the lighter in front of me. I quickly turned my head towards him to see who he was. A man was sitting, with roughly the same age as me. Maybe I was correct or not, but looking at his face, without any wrinkles, I quickly made up my mind that he is not married. He had blonde hair, which seemed to be messy, maybe because he didn't wash them up for days. As I looked into his eyes, we both smiled, but there was something strange in his eyes. That made me smile vanished instantly. I can't remember what the particular thing about his personality that made me even more depressed than I was. Maybe it was his pale face, black dress, or his eyes without any life in them. "Thanks," I said, putting the cigarette into the flame and inhaling. "Don't mention it, mate. Care to repay the favor?" he asked, pointing at my pack of cigarettes. I picked up the pack. I let him take a cigarette from the pack. He took it with a nod. I returned the gesture with a half-hearted wave of my hand and returned towards my thoughts. We sat there for a few moments where there was a complete silence in between us. I expected him to move to the other corner of the bar where there were many people drinking and chatting, but instead, he tapped me on the shoulder. "Excuse me." I turned towards him, and he still had that dumb smile on his face. Only this time he had a cigarette between his lips. "You look like a man with a story to tell," he said. "It just so happens that I'm a collector of stories. Would you mind sharing your thoughts with me?" "I beg your pardon?" I said, sounding halfway between confused and surprised by his behavior. "It seems there is something on your mind that's been holding you back for quite some time. I'm offering you to relieve yourself and throw off that huge burden of old memories." While saying so, he again patted me on the back like he was encouraging me to pour out my thoughts in front of him. "Thanks, but no thanks. And stop touching me." I suddenly started getting annoyed and pissed. I just want to be left alone. Suddenly he leaned back in his seat away from me, with his hands up in the air like he was mocking surrender. "Sorry, brother. Sorry. Just trying to be of help." His apology held little meaning, especially considering he still had that smug smile all over his face. I tried controlling my anger and my depression towards him, while not showing any signs of depression or stress on my face. "Listen, man, I really just want to be left alone. Is that okay with you?" "I hear you, mate. A man having a bad day, that's what you are." His face drooped with an exaggerated frown. "Lost your job? Car broke down?" I turned back toward him, ready to tell him to get lost, this time without any attempt to be polite. Suddenly his fake smile turned into a very real grin. With a cigarette stuck between his teeth, he came real close to my face, and I could smell his breath stinking like cheap tobacco and rotten meat. That's when he said the thing that pushed me over the edge. "Wife left you?" I kicked back my stool, knocking it to the ground, and grabbed him by the collar. I cocked back my fist, ready to drive those grinning teeth down his throat. Suddenly I became aware of the stillness that came over the bar. The bartender, the people sitting at the bar with drinks in between their hands, and a group of young girls behind me all suddenly got silent and started staring at us. The whole time he just stared into my eyes, cigarette between his teeth, lips curled into a smile. "Not again!" the bartender shouted. "Both of you stop and take it outside. I'm not gonna clean blood off my counter twice in a day. It's just a little misunderstanding between two people. No one is punching anyone, and no one is certainly gonna get hurt." The man yelled back. "Right, brother?" He looked at me with something strange in his eyes. It was a look that I can't relate to. I let go of his collar and pushed him away from me towards a stool. It took a second to adjust his shirt and returned a smile towards me. "You are not worth it," I said while picking up the cigarette from the floor and grabbing my drink. "It seems I struck a nerve there, young fella." He spun on his stool and put one finger up while looking at the bartender. "One scotch? Neat." He turned back towards me again. "The least I can do is to enjoy the same drink as you. Can I order another one for you too?" I raised my eyebrow and thought, if this guy is actually serious. A second ago I nearly punched him, and there he's offering me a drink. Suddenly I was done with him. I didn't reply, just got off my stool and started walking towards the bathroom. I don't know how, but I could feel his eyes locked on my back until I entered the bathroom. As I relieved myself in there, I started thinking about his expressions and the look on his face when he said, "Wife left you?" I was almost like he wasn't guessing, as if he knew that I'm mad at my wife. But that's not possible. I never met this guy before in my life. And if we ever shared a chat, I would certainly remember him. Still, it bugged me. When I left the bathroom, he was still sitting there, sipping his scotch. "Everything come out all right," he said with another laugh. This one like he was very amused with himself. I just ignored him and started walking towards the door. While doing so, I thought I was right the first time. This guy is a nut job, and his question was more of a guess. He wasn't worth my time. As I reached the door and put my hand on the handle, he shouted from back, "Hey friend, you forgot your cigarettes." I turned back. He was holding the pack and shaking it back and forth. I quickly walked towards him and snatched a pack out of his hand. He passed a same smile at me and turned back to his drink. "Thanks again, mate. You have yourself a lovely night." On that note, I finally left. As I walked out into the cold night, I took a deep breath, still feeling like shit, but happy to be out of there and away from that crazy man. Instead of taking a cab to my apartment, I decided to walk a few blocks and enjoy the cold breeze in early November. Just around the corner, there was a liquor store. I stopped and bought a bottle of vodka, knowing I'm gonna need it later that night. Just about the same moment, I remember the man at the bar took my lighter, and I didn't want to go back to the bar and run into him, so I decided to buy a new lighter. I didn't feel like going home, so I decided to head over to the local park and drink till I forgot the whole damn night. I sat on one of the swings and cracked the bottle open, putting it on my lips and not taking it off until I felt the burning sensation in my throat and stomach. To get off that burning sense, I took out the pack and lighted a cigarette. Inside that pack, there was a piece of paper, rolled in form of a cigarette. I pulled it out and opened it. It was a note from the man in the bar. I read it a couple of times before I could hold the bottle of vodka in my hands, and it just smashed on the concrete beneath my foot. "Hello there, mate. Just so you know, anyone can type a letter. The thing to remember is not to trust a piece of paper unless it's handwritten or you hear the words directly from the other person. It only took me a week while watching you two had your marriage is not in good shape. And maybe you too should take a break. A very long break." It was my pleasure to tell you that. She shouted your name to a very end until she couldn't speak anymore. What I like about this situation is that I killed your wife and stole a cigarette from you. Sincerely, the guy you should have punched. P.S. I drank her blood while she was struggling for her life. The next day I was called in the morgue to identify the body of a young female who was beaten and tortured. Her throat was cut open and there wasn't a single drop of blood inside her body. The body was found in an abandoned parking lot by a homeless guy. There weren't any security cameras or eyewitnesses in the area. Police never found the guy in the bar.